Very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for tuning in. I'm Sneha Koshy and you're watching Beyond the Headline. Amid all the public glare, scrutiny on violence and harassment by a spouse, particularly in the lead up to divorce, alimony as an offset of a very numbing case of Atul Subhash, a 34-year-old who died by suicide, leaving behind a heart-wrenching suicide note and video accusing his wife and her family, opening a can of worms over the battle for alimony, maintenance and divorce. In a big exclusive to the Times Network at the IAC conclave, former Chief Justice of India Chandrachud has made a hugely important statement that calls for not just judicial introspection, but possibly urgent reforms. DY Chandrachud has said, and I quote him, "I don't think the judicial system is equipped to deal with such family problems. The longer it takes to resolve, the worse it becomes. We need to move on from a fault-based theory to a mediator-based theory. Our family law has to be completely reformed." Before we proceed any further, let's listen in.
Honestly, we don't know the truth of what happened. You have on the one hand the suicide note which has been widely reported in the media. You also have the complaint by the wife which has also been reported in the media. And, particularly when human relations are involved, as in the case of a spousal conflict, it's very difficult for us sitting, in the course of a platform like this to actually deduce as to what happened between them at that particular point of time. Very often in personal relationships, including spousal relationships, the conflict is not between right and wrong. It's a conflict sometimes between right and right. It's sometimes a conflict between wrong and wrong. And I don't think that our judicial system today is equipped to deal with these issues of family conflict. The longer it takes to resolve their disputes, the worse it becomes, because then they start washing all the dirty linen, they tend to rope in each other's relatives, and then there's a point of no return which is reached for spouses. We have to really completely alter the structure of judicial decision-making, particularly in the context of family law. And we have to move away from a fault-based theory into a more mediative approach to resolving family disputes. But that's, of course, a very serious issue which has to be debated upon. But I believe that, our family law today has to be completely reworked in terms of its procedural underpinnings.
And while many around us have turned so-called judges in public discourse, the Supreme Court, while it was hearing a challenge against a Gujarat High Court order that refused relief to a man and his family accused of abetting his wife's suicide, made an important statement. Mere harassment is not sufficient to hold someone guilty of abetment to suicide, adding that there must be evidence of direct or indirect incitement for conviction in such cases. But nothing takes away from a fact that's now fast emerging in public domain of how hard, ugly, bitter, often brutal and unregulated the whole battle for not just divorce but alimony and maintenance can really turn into. And here's where Supreme Court's reiteration of an 8-pointer to determine alimony emerges as an important reminder. But that's just one part of the larger picture. To look at it holistically, I'm being joined at this point by Shonee Kapoor, who's a men's rights activist. Amish Aggarwal should be joining us in a bit. He is an advocate with the Supreme Court of India. Dr. Parin Somani, who's an author and activist, as well as Rekha Aggarwal, who's a family lawyer. Thank you very much for joining us. Well, let's just start off with where the former Chief Justice of India has left. Shonee Kapoor, if I can get you in. How do you look at what the former Chief Justice of India has said? Very, very important statements. It's almost like it's a call from possibly the most important person in a judiciary. He's just He's just retired as the Chief Justice of India, and he's saying the judiciary is not equipped to handle cases such as this?
So, Sneha, what Justice Chandrachud just said today does not make any sense to me, because when he was in office and hundreds of cases came to him, he had the chance to correct the judicial system. He had a chance to bring more meditative mediation processes in the system. What he had done when he was in office. It is very nice to play to galleries and say that there is a fight is between right and wrong and wrong. But what were you doing when you were in office and when the petitions were brought to you, asking for a gender neutral laws, asking for relief for in sexual harassment laws, asking for so many things, and you were discussing all of these, stating that it is in the domain of parliament to make laws or amend laws. Now you are saying that we are unequipped. You should have said at that time itself that we are unequipped. And the 8 pointer guidelines which came today, they leave a lot of discretion in the hand of the judge. There is nothing new which has come
Okay,
here.
we'll come to that 8-pointer in a bit, Shonee Kapoor. We'll come to that in a bit. That's again something that we'll have to discuss in detail. But can I get in Rekha Aggarwal? Advocate, you just heard Shonee Kapoor speak, and he's saying this comes too late, and this could have been done or addressed much earlier. But how do you look at this?
I would just say that better late than never. I think that, without commenting upon what Justice Chandrachud said and having heard what Mr. Shonee Kapoor also said, I do agree that there is a urgent need to reform the procedural law. Because as of now, it becomes a very, very highly cantankerous battle which is fought in the floors of the court. And it is not just one court alone where a case will be filed. Women have the right to file cases in various forums, whether it is a dowry harassment complaint in the CAW cell, which if it doesn't get settled, ultimately culminates into an FIR against the husband and the in-laws. Secondly, she can file a domestic violence complaint in the Mahila court. She can file a divorce case. She can file a petition for maintenance under 125 CRPC, under the Hindu Adoptions and Maintenance Act. Then she can ask for maintenance for the children, file a guardianship petition, so on and so forth. So I think that, I think the biggest problem and Atul Subhash case is a wake-up call for everybody. We're all part of the system, lawyers, judges, clients, society, that yes, let us have a more pre-litigation approach. Justice Chandrachud did mention about mediation, and I think that there should be a procedure, some kind of a rule laid down, some guideline laid down, that before any matter goes to the court, just as the police has been cautioned about registering an FIR just on the basis of a complaint made by a wife of dowry harassment and other cruelties, there is a filtering place, where the women, where the complainant wife and the husband are called before the CAW cell to see if there can be a possibility of an amicable settlement, either which way, either they patch up or they part ways. But before an FIR is sent to the police, a complaint is sent to the police station for registration of an FIR,
there is already existing.
Yes.
That's a very simple question. I want to go to both of you on this before I go to the other panelists. A minute maximum to both of you.
No,
Rekha Aggarwal, whatever you have said, isn't this existing?
No, there is a system which is existing. Mediation takes place in all matrimonial matters.
It is, pre-litigation is not compulsory.
Pre-litigation is not
but
mandatory.
Not pre-litigation.
In mediation happens in all matrimonial matters. And what happens in mediation
That's
centers?
what I'm saying.
No, please understand what happens in mediation centers,
Yes.
what happens at police station. They are all turning into a racket where man is asked how much you are willing to shell out to get your own freedom. It is always about money, nothing beyond it. This does not justify that you create another pre-litigation system where again the only talk is about how much money a man is able to part to get his freedom. Please, when we are talking about certain things, let us not get down to a system where even crimes, right now, even crimes like rape are being settled in mediation centers. What are you talking? Are we getting into a society where blood money will be a...
Advocate Rekha, 30 seconds before I go to others. Advocate Rekha, please respond. Because for a lay viewer, for a lay person, these are very, very important
I think
points.
with utmost respect, Mr. Kapoor is taking a very, that's a very myopic view. You cannot... absolutely. I think Mr. Kapoor, with utmost respect to him, that he's taking a very myopic view of the problem that is there. We are talking about matrimonial cases, not heinous crimes like rape or murder, etc. So if pre-litigation is made compulsorily, if the complaints are given a chance, the complainant wife, let us assume that it is the wife who's always wrong. And I'm not advocating the cause of wives. It's not that I just take up cases of wives who come to me. And I also appear for husbands. So whether it is the complainant wife or whether it is the complainant husband, let there be a method in which the problem an attempt can be made out to sort it out before the court. Before they go to the court as a last recourse, let us make an attempt and let us make pre-litigation compulsorily. Maybe they patch up, maybe they both come to an amicable settlement about whatever alimony has to be given to the wife, or no alimony at all. The wife may just want freedom, where the husband may be resisting a divorce case and saying, look, main tumko divorce nahi deta hu, you know.
You proved my point. It is always about money.
Okay, we'll get to both of you. We'll come back to you. But very quickly, if I can get in Deepika Bhardwaj.
No,
Deepika
it is not
Bhardwaj,
about money. That's what I said.
Over the last few days, hearts have gone out, Deepika. I mean, let's just look at the debates, the arguments, and forget about everything. Just look at the video and the letter. So nobody takes away from whatever is out there in public discourse. But here's the big question, and this is where I think what Supreme Court said today in the context of what happened in Gujarat is very, very important. Because the Supreme Court went on to say that mere allegations of harassment is insufficient to establish guilt. Intention to abet suicide is essential. And in this case, it was just reverse. It was the husband and his family that were accused, and they were not given the bail in the Gujarat court, and they moved the Supreme Court. So, I mean, a very, very important reminder.
Sneha, I was just looking at the graphics, and I think ex-CJI said that our family laws need a complete overhaul. So I think I would completely agree with him over there. And this is a watershed moment for at least us, where at least now finally somebody is looking at that men are suffering as well, and we need to do something. Now let's the argument on what abetment of suicide is, what instigation is, whether Atul Subhash's case has sufficient ingredients, and all of that is a long topic, and of course into the realm of what the courts are eventually going to investigate, find out, trial, etc. But I really want to emphasize a very important point, Sneha, and let us please understand that I really don't know why this decision, this beautiful decision in Rajesh Sharma case of Supreme Court of India, they said, let us create family welfare committees. They're going to be 5 to 6 people. It's going to have paralegal volunteers. It's going to have women. It's going to have wives of retired army officers, optimizing the senior citizens who have seen the entire life and looking at these cases very delicately, so that we can separate cases of, where crime has occurred versus where it is incompatibility. Even in the case today, in alimony case, where the Supreme Court has passed guidelines, they have been separated for 20 years. And the allegations from both of each other are, iska behavior acha nahi tha, uska behavior acha nahi tha, she was mean or he was mean. I mean, to suffer for 20 years for allegations like that through the system of court, going to Supreme Court, they have spent their life litigating. Who are we serving justice to? Neither women nor men. So yes, it is absolute time to look at reforms, and not for just lip service, but other parliamentarians really need to wake up that millions of families are suffering today. Family system is important to India. It is time that they sit down, get their act together, and do something about it to bring in some concrete solutions, and let this suicide not just go away, and bring in solutions for betterment for both men and women who are in very, very bitter matrimonial disputes.
Dr. Parin Somani, how do you look at whatever we have discussed till now? You heard the panelists speak earlier. You heard what Deepika Bhardwaj also spoke. And remember what the CJI has also said. And the CJI said, the longer it takes, the messier it becomes, and the harder it becomes to settle a case such as this. And then you put data, you juxtapose it with data where we say 19.3% of cruelty rate by husband and relatives, NCRB data 2020. But you have an increasing rate where false cruelty cases against husbands are as well surfacing. Juxtapose these two sides with what the former CJI has said and what is being discussed over the last 2-3 days. This is not the way we would like to see our judiciary and our legal system unfold. Dr. Paran, you'll have to unmute yourself, please.
Sorry. Because of the misuse of the law, that has created a big hangama here, how things have been doing it. Looking at the corruption, how the corruption is going around in the country, the small things have been taken in a wider way, and I think this is something has to be looked at it at the urgency how the government is looking at it, because the whole scenario is because the way it's been perceptions of the people, and looking at the Atul Subhash story, the allegations had lied upon his wife and him. That is something which as us we should be taking into the consideration how we can look into that and how we can pursue this thing. We cannot dilute the rules and the regulation for the women's protection. But remember, five fingers are not same. So every single thing we are looking at it in a very sharply, how we can bring this case to end it with the right way, and the right decision should be made by the jurisdiction.
Dr. Paran Samani, but is there an inherent bias? And, many would argue that law is not seen in terms of the mid variables. It's always seen or tested with its extremities. And law often is seen with a gender prism, particularly whether it be a very women-centric gaze, as it were. Does what has happened over the last few days in Atul Subhash's case call for a drastic change in that, or would you say that's going the extreme way?
I would say women are harassed, and no, this is wrong. This is wrong. So I would say, if you look at the story of Jessica Lal, what happened to her, or Rishi Talwar. So if we look at their stories, what has happened? It's way it should be done in a right way. Law cannot be diluted. Remember, for one person, it has to be looked at it in every single ways. Just for a few cases, you cannot dilute the law. How can you do that?
Okay, Deepika Bharadwaj, do you want to comment? Do you want to respond to this? Because here you have Dr. Paran Somani saying what's unfolded does not merit a dilution of the existing sections, of the existing laws. What it does require is a systemic overhaul of how this needs to be implemented. Shonee Kapoor, give me a few minutes. I'll just get back to you. Deepika Bharadwaj, please go ahead.
Yes, Sneha, a very, very, sad take. I have always said this, that men in this country have been reduced to as disposable entities. That in zest of protecting women, we have just completely made them forgotten. No matter how many suicides happen, no matter how many murders happen, people are saying, it's look at the numbers of women, look at the numbers of women. In words of Martin Luther King Jr., injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. Is Atul's life not important? Is life of Arvind Bharti not important? Is life of Avdesh Yadav not important? I've been documenting these very, very painful suicide cases for the last 12 years. And I just spoke to a sister today, Sneha, whose brother's story I told in my documentary. He died by suicide, leaving a 7-minute suicide video in 2009. And she was crying bitterly when I picked up the phone, and she was saying, Deepika, Nothing has changed. Makhdoom gave up his life thinking that some change will happen. But I see Atul's suicide video today, and I just question that I could not do anything, neither for my brother nor for any other brother who is dying. So, what are we saying? Just let the laws be as it is, and let them to be misused, let them to be abused, let women go from 3 crore demand of alimony to 5 crore demand of alimony, keep on filing cases one after the other, stack the system completely against the men, and then say, sorry, the numbers on women's side is really high. When are you going to wake up? When are you going to change the laws? When 1 lakh men die every year or 2 lakh men die a year?
Is it
Tell us the
as black
number.
and white, Deepika? I want to ask you this question because you've always battled for the right of men, and that is fairly so. You have all the right to do that, and the society must be equitable between genders, not just men and women, and it is not like that. But Deepika Narayan, what I want to ask you, is it as black and white? Is it just one gender abusing the other? Isn't it crossing genders, as it were?
No, no,
30
absolutely,
seconds before I
Sneha.
move on.
There is absolutely no doubt about that, that there are men who are extremely abusive, who are extremely patriarchal, who are oppressive, dominant, and not just indulge in emotional or, verbal abuse, but
Yes.
indulge in extreme physical abuse. Let us admit that it happens day in, day out to women, and these men need to be punished. But what has happened, Sneha, because of rampant misuse of these laws, eventually after Supreme Court saying so many times, the law indeed was diluted in 2014.
Okay.
It has lost its teeth. So even women who are genuine victims are finding it very, very tough today. And that's why, see, none of us, Neha, none of us are asking for,
Okay.
removal of laws. No, please, we need the laws. But do not allow this horrid misuse to go on. You have to punish the misusers. False case filers are criminals. They are playing with
Okay.
lives. Let us understand that they need to be penalized. We need to have better systems to penalize perjury, to penalize false accusations. Let just them not be get away saying, Ki,
Okay.
Acha,
Okay.
it's a gender and we can just get away with it. So that's all we are saying, Sneha. Let the laws
Deepika,
be effective. Let them be implemented
Deepika,
in the
that
right
is an
spirit.
important insight. That is an important perspective to have to see laws as well. I'm very short on time. Dr. Parin, I know you want to come in, but allow me a few minutes. Let me just very quickly shift our focus again back to Shonee Kapoor as well as advocate Rekha Aggarwal. Two of you have a very important aspect to discuss. And as we were discussing, and over the last few days as well, what has unfortunately become a reality is it's become a debate of her welfare versus his finance. As unfortunate as it is, that something that would be deeply important, deeply disturbing at a psychological, at a marital, at a personal level is reduced to this. But would you say what the Supreme Court has established as an 8-pointer for alimony, for deciding alimony, maintenance, and so on and so forth, not a first, it's already established, but sheds an important light? Shonee Kapoor.
So I'll just take half a minute to rebut something to make a very important point. Number one, laws can be made for one person. Nirbhaya made a law. Vishakha guidelines made a law. So law can be made when there is a watershed movement in the history. Laws can be made for a person. And coming back to these guidelines, what your question is, these guidelines are nothing new. Similar guidelines have come multiple times. But where is the implementation and what happens? How these guidelines are implemented? There is something called future prospects. What does future prospect means? For a person like me, it can mean something else. For a person like you, it can mean something else. And when we talk about women who were working, who have the capacity to work, where is a woman who is educated, who has left her job just to get alimony or maintenance? So please, my point is, don't reduce a divorce to a alimony settlement. And if you have to reduce divorce to a alimony settlement, let us talk only about alimony. Let's not bring any criminality into it. Let us forget that 498 case filed, domestic violence cases filed. If all the cases and 95% of the cases settle out of court, let us sit together. Let us have a 3-member jury. Let them decide what is the fit alimony and let us get done with it. If it is money, then let us
Okay,
talk.
Shonee Kapoor, 30 seconds. I want to ask you one question. So, do you agree? Do you agree with this? And I'm asking you to get a perspective before I get an advocate, Rekha. Is it increasingly or majoritarianly her welfare versus his finances? Is this what it comes down to? I'm asking you this because
It has
is
always
alimony essentially a gender neutral or a man's prerogative? Because I have seen courts where they've ordered women to pay for the alimony as well. And this has happened, I think, in the Bombay High Court, if I'm not wrong.
how many cases? How many
They are
cases, Sneha?
rare, rare,
Sneha, how
they
many
are
cases?
rare,
How many
rare.
cases? One out of million. One out of million.
Why
Yes,
is
one
it
One
out
out
of
rare?
of
I'm
million.
trying
million.
to understand this.
One out of
Why is it
million.
rare?
So 1 out of
Why is
million.
it rare? Is it the law? Is it the
No, it is
implementation? Is
not
it
the
the
law. It
interpretation?
is the mindset. It is the
Or
mindset
is
that
it
the
because
man
men
has.
largely in a society earn more? What is it?
Yes, yes, it is largely that the men earn more, but it has become that a man cannot sit at home. See, there are men who are genuinely out of job. There are men who have lost their job because of some physical or mental disability. But even they are not granted maintenance. The only time maintenance is granted when the court is 100% sure that the man cannot move out. Only in those cases, men are granted any alimony or maintenance. Please understand, I have been through this. I have been
Okay, I'm
going through
short on
these
time.
cases for the last
Shonee
15
Kapoor,
years.
allow me to get in Rekha Aggarwal. Rekha Aggarwal, please respond.
I would say over here that more and more, as you said, that in our society, generally it is the man who earns more, and that is why when Mr. Kapoor said it is 1 in a million case, very often the men are not only earning more, but they're also hesitant to ask for alimony and maintenance. So if they ask, probably the courts are going to consider the Rajneesh versus Neha affidavit, which in 2020 was laid down as the benchmark for deciding maintenance and alimony. So if the Rajneesh Neha affidavit is filed by the husband also, and he asks for maintenance, and I'm certain that in a given case, a man may be given maintenance. And at the same time, I would also like to state over here that the Hindu Marriage Act was drafted in the year 1956. Today, we are here in the year 2024, which is also going to end. I think those laws do need to be relooked. And maintenance, interim maintenance should be granted also to men in a given case if he asks for it and if he's not earning sufficiently. And as far as 498A Indian Penal Code, which is now 8587 of BNS, and the Domestic Violence Act 2005, which are only the privilege of women to make these kind of complaints, they should be made gender neutral. I think that there could be a big sweeping reform in the way these divorce cases and matrimonial disputes are ultimately solved in the court.
Before I go to Shonee, Rekha Aggarwal, do you see this as a watershed moment?
I do. I do see it as a watershed moment
Rekha Aggarwal?
because this man was an educated man. Here, Atul was a very, yes, Atul Subhash was an educated man. He was not somebody who just, took his life, in the heat of the moment. So he has gone through the entire, bloodshed and tears, he's shed in this entire litigation which he's been facing in Jaunpur. So I do think
I practically have just 1 minute.
Lawmakers are going
I would like to go very
revamp
quickly.
the laws which
Shonee
have become
Kapoor.
almost archaic.
Shonee Kapoor.
So yes, it is a watershed moment. Nothing to steal away from what Atul had done, and I'm very sorry to say that the law needs a change. Not only change, it needs to be redrafted, and we need to have certain safeguards, like something against misuse of laws.
Okay.
And if these
Sneha,
are not
very quickly.
implemented, such
Sneha,
things
very
will
quickly.
Deepika Narayan.
Sneha,
Deepika
Sneha,
Narayan
very
Bhardwaj, please.
quickly, the parliament is on, the sessions are on. Whenever we have seen parliament in running, and if there's a case of crime against women that gets discussed, like the case of Atul Subhash, there's so many members of parliament, especially women, who have raised their voice that, something so horrid has happened to a woman. Let us look at what is happening to women in the country. Not one parliamentarian, it has been 4 days, has said anything about this case in the parliament. It is my humble request to the media to please question our members of parliament if they do not really think this is an important case, or why nothing has been said in the parliament, not even a word in the parliament yet. And this shows the bias that is there in the society,
Okay.
Sneha.
Get your point. For the lack of time, Dr. Paran Samani, your concluding remarks.
I will only say that we are not just activities for the women here. Man also matters a lot. My point is not to dilute law made to protect the women. For God's sake, change the procedure,
All right.
not the long
Okay.
justice duration. Can I be honest with you? We don't want to drag
Okay.
this case for more and longer and
No,
longer.
I think we're totally
So
out
I
of
would
time.
say
I'm really sorry to cut this short. Shonee Kapoor, Deepika Narayan Bhardwaj, Dr. Parin Samani, as well as Rekha Aggarwal, thank you very much for joining us on this very, very sensitive topic. And I think we can just leave it at where the former Chief Justice of India left it, that possibly the judiciary is not well equipped to handle that. Let that sink in, because this is nothing short of a huge call for reforms. Thank you very much for tuning in.